Hello and welcome to my technology podcast. This is my first episode, so bear with me if not everything is yet fully polished. I'm also currently, if you're watching this in video format on YouTube or the library network /odyssey.com. My office is in a bit of a reorganization state at the moment. But with projects like these, there is no better time than the present to get going. As I already mentioned, besides YouTube and the library network, the podcast will be available on all the major podcasting sites like Apple, Spotify, Spreaker, and probably some others. If we are not on your desired platform, then please leave a comment either on YouTube or on all the library sites, or even on our website, where I will always be posting the show notes. That is on bnonet.com. I repeat again, bnonet.com. Of course, you will find the link to that website and the show notes in detailed form below the videos on YouTube and library. And so let's get going, I would say. So, who am I that I'm now talking to every one of you through all these means of communication? My name is Bastian Noffer. I'm 37 years old. I am living in Germany, and I am a software engineer, entrepreneur, and agilist. And all of these fields basically not in a particular order. I am pretty much invested in all of them. And I have been working in technology related capacities for over 20 years now. So even in parallel to my study I crossed a lot of areas during my professional career, from consumer electronics to gastronomy solutions to healthcare. And lastly, I was heavily invested into mobile development because I led a team at one of the major hypermarket brands here in Germany, developing their mobile apps. And I just want to use my experience to give back a bit to the amazing technology community that is available online. And 2020 really has been a crazy year for all of us. And especially in the technology sector, there also was a lot of stuff happening that is very foreshadowing for changes in the technology industry in the near to midterm future. And I just want to use this program to give my own take on these things, thoughts on what might happen, and based on that, perhaps give some educational or career advice to people who are just getting into the field. So if all of these are topics that are interesting to you, then I would love for you to stick around and continue to follow this podcast. I am not completely new to the field of content creation. In the past, however, it was more in the area of writing and not audiovisual. when I started teaching myself creating websites in the late 1990s, early 2000s, I was actually looking for a goal because I always am a very goal oriented person. I don't want to create something just for creating something. It should have a dedication, it should have a purpose. And at the time, of course, computers were an amazing thing for me. And like all my friends, we were all into computers, computer games. And I was reading a lot of blogs and news sites, what is happening in the market. And somehow the idea was born to create my own news site and perhaps even write some reviews myself. And yeah, I got going, I think, in 2000 with the whole thing. And that's actually where this domain for this podcast, bnonet.com, harkens back to, because that site was called BNO Net at the time. And actually, it was pretty successful. I started out with news and then some simple device reviews and driver reviews where I was testing graphics card drivers, comparing them, what's the best driver to use. Because I was at that time one of the few guys that had some of the newer cards, and it became a pretty good resource for people at the time. And at first, I wasn't carried by other news sites, so they put me in their news summary. And when I upgraded my personal computer at the time, I wrote reviews on the processor, on the motherboard. I even got once a deal with graphics card manufacturer Elsa, which was German based at the time. The company still exists, and I think they're already, or not already, but they're still doing graphics cards, but now out of Taiwan. And they were actually the first ones where I really got a review sample of a graphics card from. And my reviews were actually carried by major brands like MSI. It might even be that you can still find those links on their website, but of course they are now really dead and defunct. I shelved the project basically in 2005 when I got into my study and completely took it offline, I think in 2006 or 2007. But the drive to create some content online never left me completely. When I got my first MacBook Pro back in 2008, I replaced with that my personal PC, and I was using that machine not only for my schoolwork, my study work, but also for gaming. And as PC Mac, I think it was PC Mac in 2006 or 7. I don't remember right now, but it was crowned the best Windows gaming laptop at the time. And I basically did the same as back in 2000. I created reviews for graphics card drivers on Windows, um, which one is actually the best to use, so you could get the maximum out of that NVIDIA 8600 GT. What was, I think, which was in those machines. And yeah, but that content sadly got lost when Apple canceled iWeb, which was their free web hosting suite for their .Mac program members, which is a predecessor to iCloud today. And yeah, then I did nothing for a long time actually, and started a new blog only back in 2013, and I put content onto that till about 2015, but not very regularly. And that blog can still be found on Blogspot. It will show up, especially when you look for Plex Media Server and issues with the DS Lite problem. DS Lite is basically dual stack for DSL connections, where you are getting a shared IPv4 address, which everyone used to use till a few years ago to access the internet, and you only got your get your unique IPv6 address. And for running Plex services or services from your home in general, that's DS Lite thing is a huge problem. And I wrote some articles about that at the time. And yeah, then basically from that time on, the blog was basically just sitting there, and I reactivated it for this podcast. All the contents from the old Blogspot blog are now transferred to the new website. So there is a bit more content there than just the hello post. I also added a podcast episode from last year that I did with two colleagues of mine on the current smartphone market. And that is sadly only in German. So if you're a German speaker, or if you are able to understand German, feel free to listen to that episode, because it was pretty interesting. We were going, we were discussing the history of the whole smartphone market since the release of the iPhone, and what things are changing in the business at the time. And I am actually intending to do a follow-up episode to that. That will actually be the next episode to this one. And where I want to extend that scope a bit or to the whole personal computing industry. There is a lot of things happening that is building on all that context, but more on that in the specific episode. So, in regards to the episodes of this podcast, I try to stick to a limit of 30 minutes per episode, and they will be released as a premiere on YouTube at 8 p.m. CET on Sundays, and then they will be on the other podcasting platforms at 8:30 p.m. CET. In addition to these regular 30-minute episodes, I am currently considering also doing some live streams on YouTube with guests, and also doing Q&As. I am probably going to wait on that till we have some episodes of the podcast live, and I'm getting some feedback from all of you. So I actually have an audience to actually do a Q&A. And if you have suggestions for people that I should talk with, feel free to mention those in a comment. Or if you have direct inquiries or have suggestions for guests or topics, send me an email to listeners@bnonet.com, and I will take those into consideration. So this email address is the best way to reach out to me, because this is a dedicated mailbox only for this program, and those things will not get lost. Okay, that's already it for this initial episode. Thank you for listening, and if you enjoyed this initial episode, the next one will be released next Sunday at 8 p.m. Central European Time on YouTube as a premiere, and on 8:30 p.m. Central European Time on all the podcast platforms. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.